Ask Tom on Home Show.
Clark from Houston needs a little deck help.
Yeah, he needs help with this deck in particular here, Tom. Clark writes to us. He says that we have a deck that is part on land, but mostly over water, fresh water. And we have treated the lumber and it has rotted out in the past 5 years. What would be the best natural material to use that will last and not rot? Okay. What would not rot, Tom?
Well, any natural material is going to rot. And the reason they pressure treat it is they put chemicals in there, which is not natural. In fact, it's a copper-based chemical now. And what you're seeing there is not really as much rotting. I'm sure if I went around and poked on it, it would still be pretty solid. It's weathering. Pressure-treated lumber, especially after the new treatment, and not too long ago I was saying, oh, they just changed it, and now we're having problems. But now, as old as I am, that was like 20 years ago when they changed it. So I can't say it's something new. But they went from an arsenate, which still weathered, but they went to a copper-based somewhere in the 90s, the late 90s, I do believe, or early 2000s. And they did it for environmental reasons, and it weathers terribly, and it looks exactly like that. This is why we don't use pressure-treated lumber for decking material, handrails, and all the stuff you're showing me these pictures of. You're seeing now, even if it's the Parks Department, if you go to Galveston and you'll see these little walkways they build to the beach. It's all done with composite materials today, what you see. Now, the pressure-treated lumber, they do that for the structure because it's structurally sound. It just looks really bad, but you don't see it because you're not using it as a walking surface. You're not using it as benches, handrails, siding applications, outdoor showers. They're using products like Trex and Choice Deck, and there's a lot of different ones out there today. So the answer is there's no natural material you're going to find that's not going to weather like that. You would have to, from day one, start to paint it, use a deck paint, and continually paint it. And you could use a pressure-treated lumber, and it would look better because it's a painted surface. Although you walk on it a lot, after a while, it's going to need painting because it'll look bad. It'll just look different, but bad because you've been walking on it. So the fact of the matter is, I think you should rethink it if you're going to rebuild it and use one of the composite materials that always looks good. The pressure treated, anything that goes into the ground, they have pressure treated that's stamped at 0.4. Stay away from anything that's 0.25. Usually they'll have little stickers or stamps on the pressure treated lumber, or you order it from the lumber yard, and that's for in contact with ground. Now, when you're doing structural pressure treated, like the big stilts they build homes on, it's actually a 0.6, and you order that special, but you don't use that with decks. And the water itself, anywhere any kind of wood gets wet and dry over a period of time, it's eventually going to rot through. But what they use now is 0.6 pressure treated for all the posts that go down into the lakes and stuff. And it'll last a long, long time before it ever gives you structural problems. But it's not going to look pretty. It's just the way pressure treated lumber is.
Tom will tell you how it is when you click on that Ask Tom button. He'll say, "This is how it is."
That's fine. Okay.
It's like the thing of God answers every prayer, but sometimes the answer is no. Well, it's the same thing with Tom and home improvement questions. Sometimes.
Well, they say if you don't like the answer, don't ask the question.
Right.
So
I remember
that happens
I
in
used
life.
to listen to this guy years and years ago named Bruce Williams on the radio. I think.
I know exactly who that is.
He used to have people call and ask him questions, and if they didn't get the answer they wanted, they'd kind of ask it in another way, trying to get the answer they wanted. And he'd say, "Hey, Tiger, you can ask it any way you want. You're going to get the same answer."
That's right.
But with this, I will tell you about the wood decking as opposed to the Trex. We built some stairs on the back of this building 5 years ago when we moved into this building. And I decided that I didn't want to spend that extra $3,000 to go with Trex as opposed to, or Choice Deck, whatever the composite deck was that they were going to use.
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah. Instead of doing that, I went with pressure treated lumber. Today, I wish I'd spent that $3,000.
Do you really?
Yeah, because it's not just the rotting and the cupping and all the other stuff the wood does. Yeah. It's the way nails start working their way back up out of it. We used to have at our pool deck in my old house before Sandy and I got married. Yeah. And the kids, I know what you're going. Finish that story. Kids running around, nails sticking up. Yeah. Yeah. So every spring, it was a rite of passage. Dad's out there with a hammer and a countersink, dropping the nails and putting them back down because they'd come right back up every year. So
They will.
Right. You got a question? Tom will help you out. You go click on the Ask Tom form right there and fill it out, send it in. Question comes out here. That's what we do. They pay us to do this too. Can you believe that? That's why we do it every day. If we stop doing it, they'll stop paying us. That's not true. We do it because we want to help you. Okay? And we'll post these on our YouTube channel and, of course, at HomeShowRadio.com.